Students heading back to school, a national debate heating up over whether cell phones belong in classrooms, with more states moving to impose new restrictions this upcoming school year. 35 states have rules limiting phones and electronic devices in schools. Joining us right now to talk about it is Joanne Lipman, a Yale University lecturer and a CNBC contributor. Also, Emily Boddy, a smartphone-free Childhood U.S. council member. I want to thank both of you. It's great to see you. There's a big question about this. And I know a lot of parents go back and forth. A lot of people don't want the phones in the classroom themselves, but also then want the kids to have cell phones so that if there's an emergency, they can get to them. What say you, Joanne?
Sure. Thanks, Andrew. Good to see you. So I am on the side of keep them in schools, but with some limits. And there's a couple of reasons for that, and there's a lot of research now that's come out behind this. So first of all, as a parent, I've got to say just the safety issue, period. I'm a parent. I would want my kids to be able to reach me in the event of a true emergency. In terms of the academics, however, look, we live in the real world. We all use our cell phones. These are important tools, and we need to teach our kids to use them responsibly and ethically. And they're going to grow up and they're going to be the people who are going to build on these tools. And it's really important that we don't sort of bury our heads in the sand. And there's a lot of practical uses. I would say limits, right? I'm all totally fine with this idea that their cell phone must be in a pocket, must be zipped. You cannot use it for social reasons. That would be, a demerit or whatever, detention. But I do think in terms of the classroom, there's practical reasons. I actually use it at Yale with my own students. If they've got an assignment or I'm showing something that's an illustration, I'm like, take out your phones and take a picture of that. You want to have that there for those kinds of reasons. But there's also studies. I was really fascinated to find there's a study in Singapore that found that if you take phones away from the students, their performance, academic performance declines because of their anxiety. Now, this is not really great for your mental health, but they found that even having the phone in your pocket and not being allowed to use it was actually helping them with their mental health and with their academic performance.
Okay, I think Emily's on the other end of this. What do you think?
Yeah. So thank you for having me, Andrew. We strongly advocate actually for bell-to-bell policy, which means that phones are turned off and inaccessible to students from the first bell of the day to the last bell of the day. And to Joanne's point, what we find is that if students do have access to their phone, even during a social period, their focus during the class period is on what's happening on the phone. And so we find that students relax into the day more easily, knowing that everyone's phone is put away. With regards to emergencies, I'm a mom. I have young children. I completely get the emotional response to wanting to be in contact with my child during an emergency. And we know that children are less safe in school if they have a phone during an emergency. Police responders, first responders, they are very clear about this. Students need to be focusing on the adult who is giving them critical instructions for their safety. We need to keep cellular networks clear and open during an emergency so that first responders can be communicating efficiently and quickly. And we don't want inaccurate information spreading during an emergency over text or over social media because it can confuse the process and cause panic. So while children with phones in their pockets during the day are not safer, they will learn less, they will be more lonely, and they will be more anxious. And when it comes to the education piece, we couldn't agree more. Kids absolutely need more education around digital technology, use, and risks, but we need to educate without access. So we do this with myriad other things in school.
Emily, I want to get back to Joanne, but I just have one question just as a follow-up here. What do you make of Joanne's point about the technology itself, which is that you want this next generation of kids to understand how to use a phone, hopefully responsibly? I'm not suggesting they can use it responsibly. I think part of the problem is there's an addiction level or element to it that we need to somehow fix. But I imagine in the future, by the way, I know kids, by the way, in middle school who are recording their teachers on the phone. You may say that's good or bad. And then now they're getting that turned into notes for them, which, by the way, may be good or bad too. But the point is that technology is moving so quickly, and if they don't have access to it, what does that do?
Yeah, so we really need kids to develop skills before screens. So there's critical thinking skills that come into play that will enable kids as they get older and their brain develops more to be able to use these tools more effectively. Look, we have to acknowledge that these devices are not designed for responsible use, right? As adults, we even struggle to use them appropriately. And so we really need to set foundational skills before we're enabling kids to skip all of the friction learning, right? Before they get to that point. And we often educate without access, right? Take financial literacy. We're not giving kids a high limit credit card and expecting them to go out and know what to do with it right away. We teach about responsibility. We teach about risk. And we view the 6 to 7 hour day a break from the phone actually part of the education, right? It creates better habits and better patterns. And we hear from students across the country that they're using their phones differently and they're using their phones less as a result of this break during every single school day.
Can I just make the point?
The floor is yours. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I'd like to just a little bit of history here. If you think about it, when Wikipedia came out, it was like, oh my God, our kids will never learn how to research. Google, our kids they're never going to learn how to read. They're never going to learn anything because Google's going to tell them anything. I'm of a generation where I have older sisters, and when the pocket calculator first came out, they were banned from schools because kids will never, ever learn how to do math. So my point being, historically, every time we have these new technologies, there's a lot of fear about them. And then ultimately, we learn how to use them as tools. And it does. And in the best case, it actually helps you to learn. And by the way, there's another study that I came across in Taiwan of elementary school students that actually found that students with cell phones in schools actually performed better than those without. And the point that those researchers were trying to make was that banning schools might unintentionally widen the education gap because your lower income students are more likely to have phones than they are to have either internet access or other devices at home. And so therefore you are depriving them of a really important tool that could ultimately hurt their performance as well.
So can I respond?
Go for it, Emily.
I just wanted to note that, if we were talking about tools that provided a simple function of giving educational tools, that would be one thing. But these smartphones provide so much else. And because they're primarily used by students for social reasons and for gaming and for all myriad other things, it's very difficult to argue that a child is going to be able to filter out when they're using it as a tool and when they're using it socially. And what we see in schools is that students are spending time off task using their devices more than they're paying attention in class. And so we need to be able, yeah.
I just want to agree with you on that point, which is why I really do feel like you have to, I know we're debating, but I agree with you on this point that that is really important to keep it focused on the academics and not the social.